Good evening, my friends. This is the Grim Flayer. Hope you're all doing very well tonight. Hope you're doing as well as I'm doing because that's right, Veil of Summer is banned in the Pioneer format. You have got to love that. You just gotta love it. So we are going to cover that briefly here at the beginning of this video. This will be Pioneer Banhammer Round 2, Veil of Summer eating the ban. And then the second half of the video, or probably the vast majority of the video time-wise, will be a deck tech update for my Pioneer Rock deck list. I have had a lot of people asking me about that, so I am going to show you the list that I have been testing prior to this ban announcement, but post my most recent league on the channel. So I'm going to show you that, I'm going to show you why I made the changes that I did, and then we are going to update the list further, do a little on-the-fly deck building to reflect the ban of Veil of Summer. So that's going to be our video. Let's jump right into it. Okay, so let's take a look at their rationale. They say, observing the evolution of the Pioneer format after last week's bans, we are generally seeing positive changes to the metagame. However, green-based aggro, and ramp decks still remain overrepresented in the competitive metagame at the expense of mid-range and control. Very true. The policemen of the format, the interactive good guys of the format, will no longer be taking a back seat to the one-mana cryptic command. So, yeah, don't see me crying about that. I think this is a great thing. Therefore, we are banning Veil of Summer to better allow for natural metagame forces to provide counter pressure against these strategies. We expect this to increase incentive to play reactive strategies that will help keep the format in balance over the long term without fundamentally changing any of the diversity of decks currently available in Pioneer. And this is very true, you know, I have no arguments with this. I support this ban 1000%. I wouldn't even mind seeing it get banned, frankly, in other formats. I don't think that's particularly likely. I don't think it's going to have anywhere near the same amount of representation as it does in other formats that it did in Pioneer for its brief heyday in this brand new format. But I do think that the card, I've ranted and raved about this card on camera before, in-game, in theory videos like this. My feelings on this are well known. I don't think it's good design. I think it feels apropos of nothing. And I think we are, in a lot of formats, especially in the most popular format, Modern, there remains a sense among the community that Wizards is very reluctant to print viable answers, new viable answer cards, but whether by the process of design naturally having loopholes that get missed, or whether out of a more overt intention to do so, they are a lot more freewheeling with the new threats and the new combo enabling pieces and so on and so forth that they print. With that in mind, the fact that one of the most playable new, technically answer cards that they printed, or interactive cards like Veil of Summer, actively punishes interaction to the point of a total and complete blowout against any kind of a fair deck if you're casting this at an opportune time. It really is indicative, it just kind of has become emblematic to me and to others of the type of design that we really don't like to see more of. So I am 100% behind this card hitting the road, hitting, see ya, you're in the rear view, Veil of Summer, no more blowing out our interaction. It's just not going to happen this efficiently. No more one-mana cryptic command for you. So I do co-sign this logic, but I also want to illustrate another example. So, of course, this is Veil. This is what it does. Now, imagine, let's forget about Veil for a minute. Imagine you are just on a BGX deck or another kind of black-based interactive deck, and you're playing against like a Boros Prowess deck or a Boros Heroic deck. In other words, some kind of red-white aggressive deck that actively tries to play cards that target its own creatures and get some kind of benefits therefrom. So you may or may not have hand information, but one card that could be on your radar is a card like Titan Strength. So if your opponent let's say you're holding up Fatal Push or Abrupt Decay or some other instant speed kill spell. If your opponent's got a prowess creature or a heroic creature on the field, you have a decision to make. You can wait. Instead of main phasing, killing it with your Fatal Push, you can say, alright, I'm going to untap and let the opponent go to their turn, and then maybe they're going to spend some cards like Titan Strength on it, and then before we go to damage, I can kill it, and I will have 2-for-1 them, or maybe 3-for-1 them, if they cast more than one such effect, like Titan Strength, that doesn't really replace itself. You do get some value out of the Scribe, but nevertheless. And on the other hand, you could be saying, well, maybe I should just main phase this and kill it because they could have a protection effect like this one, like God's Willing. So that is what we call decision making. That rewards format knowledge. That rewards meta knowledge. That rewards having hand information and accurately tracking the contents of your opponent's hand. This decision rewards, just weighing the odds of what's likely or not and seeing where you are in the game. If you're very far ahead, maybe you just main phase it so you don't get blown out and give the opponent a window back. If you're already behind, maybe you have to take the high risk, high reward line of waiting till the last possible minute to kill the opponent. This is good gameplay. This is interesting gameplay when the opponent could be on a God's Willing or they could be on a Titan Strength and you're deciding which one you want to try to kind of have them on, to try to anticipate that they're on. But the card Veil of Summer is such a blowout. It is so universally powerful. It is so punishing if it lines up that if Veil of Summer is even suspected out of the opponent's deck, and in Pioneer, if they had any green whatsoever, then it was expected, you just main phase your removal. It's just almost always correct to just main phase the removal no matter what other incentives are in play, because Veil of Summer is just simply that bad. If they're tapped out, even if it's suboptimal, even if it's less interesting, even if you have other incentives not to do so, you just have to cast it while they're tapped out because Veil of Summer was so warping and so unbeatable in terms of the protection it offers and the value it offers. And not every deck cares about the cantrip that much, but the decks that it hoses, the blue permission decks or the black discard decks or the black kill spell decks, they all really suffer when the opponent 2-for-1s them at such a good rate of mana as well. So that's kind of my example as to why Veil of Summer really generated a lot of unhealthy gameplay. Very happy to see you go. And that's my thoughts on Pioneer Banhammer. Round 2, couldn't be happier, even though I just started running the second Veil in my own deck. Doesn't matter, very happy to see it gone. Speaking of my own list, let's go take a look at that. Okay guys, so here's the list, or things like it, the same type of shell with maybe switching one card in, one card out, trying a few different things. This is the shell that I have been testing pre-ban. As I just mentioned, as you can see, there are 2 copies of Veil of Summer, so we're going to go over this list, why it differs from the one you saw in my last league and in what ways. And once we've gone over that, we are going to make a few changes on the fly to reflect the ban of Veil of Summer. So right away, the first thing that's different is I've gone all the way up to 25 lands, and I've cut a Field of Ruin. So the mana was killing me before with only 23, 24 lands, triple colorless. The deck's mana hungry and it's color hungry. We really need to make our land drops. And we do need pretty specific colors for these green-black spells, including the Grimflayer that used to be in here but is conspicuously absent. More on that when we get to CMC 2 column. Deathrite Shaman does need specific mana color access to do his thing repeatedly, and in general we just have a lot of value town stuff that benefits from land drops and high curve stuff both in the main deck and in the sideboard. So going up to 25 lands seems like a really good change. I have also, I believe I was only on 2 Fabled Passage in my most recent list on the channel. Maybe that's wrong. Either way, I did test with 2 for a little while, but I've gone back up to 3 to better fuel Deathrite Shaman and Tireless Tracker. I have also added a Temple of Malady kind of replacing Field of Ruin in that it's a utility land. Obviously, they do very different things, but Temple is mana fixing and utility. I think we can afford the ETB tapped Scry 1 land. A one copy seems pretty nice if we're all the way up on 25 lands. The final couple changes that I've made to the mana base include working in some woodland cemeteries, which, let's face it, I've known I had to do for a while. I just kind of didn't get around to doing it and probably should have had it done for the second league. This card is just very good when we're restricted as we are from having real fetch lands in the deck. We want these in a 2-color deck in some number. And I have also added a third basic forest, which I think is a fine addition in a vacuum, but specifically is to help facilitate the tutor of a basic forest from the one of Nissa Vastwood Seer that is now in the deck. So kind of a lot of changes to the land base, but that's the building block of any good deck, and the mana beforehand, before this change, was a little too sparse and a little bit too colorless. So onto the CMC 1 column. I have been testing this change playing only 3 Fatal Push main deck. Partially, I guess, because, you know, the not every deck, of course, cares about Fatal Push. That's also true in Modern, though. Fatal Pushes are most likely probably to be dead card in Game 1, but we still play 4 of them in Modern. But my thinking here is that that's still true in Pioneer, perhaps. It is perhaps our most likely to be dead card overall. And besides that, the decks where we need it are just not as punishing as they are in Modern. They don't go as fast. They're not as ruthless. So perhaps we will not be as punished for playing the 4th copy in the sideboard instead of the main deck. Just have, be as well-rounded as possible in Game 1. I'm not necessarily advocating that change for everybody. It's just something I've been testing. 4 copies of Thoughtseize, definitely a must-have, definitely a staple, especially now that Veil is gone. I have moved off of all other discard effects for the moment, besides the discard mode, I suppose, of Collective Brutality. Maybe discard gets a little bit more appealing now that Veil will be gone, but still, overall, Despise and Duress have been a little bit disappointing relative to my expectations. So for now, we've been off of those. Still on the 3 of Deathrite Shaman, still trying to make this work as a kind of main deckable utility card. Occasionally will ramp us into something big above ahead of schedule, or let us go like turn 3 Tracker into Clue if we were in a grindy matchup. But it is main deckable utility, gives us some reach, lets us break board stalls really well, disrupts graveyard-based strategies really well. That said, it is often a passenger, a low-impact passenger in some matchups as well. Sometimes you just kind of have to cast it on curve and it doesn't do much for a while. I don't know. The jury is still out, but I have been trying it most recently. But I think some more interesting things are maybe afoot here. Oh, sorry, I almost forgot about the most interesting thing here. The 1 of Knight of the Ebon Legion. Guy looks a little bit weird, maybe is only a 1 of, but look, it's a mana sink. Not necessarily great in multiples unless the board is uncontested, right? So I think, philosophically, it kind of makes sense to play this only as a 1 of, especially if we are more value-oriented with most of our threats. This is another mana sink. It can clock well. It can kind of snowball the game. It has it gives us a different dimension. Let's say it lets us bluff attacks better than a green-black rock deck usually can, or even bluff blocks for that matter. And it's been performing really well as a 1 of. I do think if I ever do decide to give up the Ghost on Deathrite Shaman or to try playing without him for a while, I'm interested in maybe another Knight or 2. Also worth noting while we're on the subject, I tried splitting Deathrite Shaman and Gilded Goose. I tried upping the count to 4 or maybe even 5 total mana dorks and playing like 2 Goose, 3 Deathrite or vice versa. Didn't really end up liking Goose. Didn't like it at all, honestly. I think maybe if you're on Goose, you should just be playing Oko, playing blue. Not trying to do that. Don't like that. So Deathrite Shaman for now is what it is, but the Knight has been really impressive. We'll see if we want to add more in the future. But moving on to the 2-drop slot, as I mentioned, Grimflayer has been cut entirely. This makes me sad, my friends. It really does. But you know what? I gotta be honest. I gotta be ruthless. I gotta be truthful. And the truth is that Grimflayer, even though I really wanted to like him, just always feels that little bit shy of being great. He's decent, definitely fine, definitely has his moments, is proactive, but yeah, just hard to get Delirium going consistently, dies to a whole lot, kind of conspicuously low value relative to our other threats, and again, the green-black on turn 2, granted my new mana base would help us cast him more often, but even that is not free, even that can be a little bit awkward, so we're revamping the theory behind this 2-drop slot. We are using it to interact heavily with 4 Decay and 2 Assassin's Trophy, and we are still playing 3 Scavenging Ooze because this card has been one of the very most powerful cards overall, generically useful, and game-winning cards, frankly, in my testing so far. Still love the 3, but we are also playing 2 copies of Sign in Blood. I noted in my 5-0 reviews that there were some Read the Bones in some successful lists. Now, that's a little bit more of a Seasons Past card than like a low-curve rock port from Modern card, but my deck is kind of existing in a space in between those two, and therefore I think Sign in Blood is kind of the perfect fit for it, because we are loaded down with stuff we really want to do in this 3-drop slot. The 2-drop slot, sometimes we won't need to decay anything, or we won't want to trophy something, or we just won't have those cards, right? So Sign in Blood is going to help us make sure we hit our land drops above all. Hitting the land drops, so important here. This deck really needs land drops all the way up to 4 on curve almost every game to function optimally. And Sign in Blood is going to be a great consistency tool for doing that. I think playing more than 2 with all the aggro going around might be a little bit loose, but we can accommodate 2. And remember that this is target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life, so hey, this even gives us that little bit of reach. Combined with Deathrite Shaman, we can snake out a win through a stalled board, maybe draining the opponent out with Sign in Blood. But I have liked this card in my testing, I really have. I think this is kind of like, this is one of the things, this 2-drop slot, so one of the things that makes my list a little bit unique from the other ones I've been seeing. And I'll be perfectly honest, I haven't been playing enough. I don't have the results to back up this list. I'm just telling you what I've been testing, that's all. So let me know what you think about that. And now let's take a look at the higher curve options. Okay, so at the top of CMC3, we only have 1 Liliana the Last Hope. Now, this is probably the thing that's most likely to be wrong in my deck, I'll be honest, but a few caveats and a few explanations why. So number 1, we do have the second copy still, but she is in the sideboard. Number 2, if you look at the other things here in the deck, talk about MVPs. This Value Town package here, the 3-drop slot, has just been MVP. I can't say enough good things about Murderous Rider. I mean, this card is just awesome. I like it in Modern even, but I certainly love it in Pioneer. I've gone all the way up to 4 Tireless Tracker because it has been the most consistent performer in my testing, even before adding the 24th and 25th land. This has just been key to a lot of victories. It's just very strong in Pioneer. And the One of Courser, obviously living the value dream with Tireless Tracker. And Nissa Vastwood Seer kind of fits this Value Town package. She is going to guarantee our 4th land drop if you cast her on curve. And again, hitting that land number 4 is so crucial for this deck to function. And then, of course, that's a 2-for-1. That's kind of good enough in and of itself in some ways. But if you get her late game, yeah, you get to flip her. She's a Planeswalker. She is a value engine. And that's a great thing. That's a beautiful thing. So we are very happy with how the 3-drop slots have been performing. And I think of all of these cards, Liliana the Last Hope is the most likely to be dead or to be bad in any given game 1. So even though I think she's awesome, I think she is probably pretty clearly our best Planeswalker in these colors. The reasons that I've listed have led me to siding one, maining the other one, rather than main decking 2. Again, this still might be kind of more likely than anything else I'm doing to be wrong. Maybe we just have to play the second Lily main because she's that good and find another cut somewhere else, but that's what I've been testing. I can't say that I've really regretted doing that yet, not that I can tell, right? Here at the 4-drop slot, we're grouping Garrick in here just to make everything fit on the screen more cleanly, but in the past I was on 1 Vraska, 1 Questing Beast, and 1 Kalitas main deck, but of the 3, the QB has been the overperformer, so I have gone up to 2 Questing Beast. I've retained my main deck Vraska, who's also been very good, and honestly, Kalitas has also been quite good, but again, I think what Kalitas brings to bear is less likely to be relevant overall in the widest variety of game ones than what QB and Vraska bring to bear. So Khalid is still very strong. I still see no reason not to play him. But if I had to move one thing to the sideboard, it would be the Kalitas. Thought about just putting the second QB in the sideboard as well, but I think QB is proactive enough that it's even the second QB might be more of a main deck card than the first Kalitas. But again, we do need more testing. And finally, we have Garrick, Cursed Huntsman, at the top end here. Just nice big 6-drop rewarding us for playing so many lands and playing a grindy game. He's been awesome. I'm going to stick by him until further notice. So real quick, moving to the sideboard, we do have that 4th Fatal Push. Down to 1 Collective Brutality. I think our matchup against the hyper aggro burn style decks is quite good. And, Brutality is a fine card, but I don't really feel the need to play more than 1 right now, even though it's very powerful. Liliana's Triumph has been awesome for me. It's an out to Hazaret. It's an out to other indestructible things. It's an out to Emrakul. And it's just an Edict effect. It's an out to Bogles. And it is a 2-for-1 if you've got a Liliana on the field. Great card, in my view. Noxious Grasp, because green is everywhere. The 1 life's a little whatever, but you got the creature or the planeswalker on a 2-mana instant that doesn't have the downside of trophy or the restriction of decay. I don't think we need to play 3 of these like some people do, because again, we do have decays and trophies, but 1 is pretty nice right now. Bile-Blight. This card has been very good, but when we make changes, I think I'm going to cut it. I'll tell you why when we get there. Still on the 1 of Lost Legacy. We mentioned Kalitas. We mentioned the second Liliana, the Last Hope. Liliana, Death's Majesty. This is some new tech I've been trying, and I've been very surprised. I think she is less main deckable than Vraska and Garrick, because she, in a non-grindy, if your opponent's not interacting, she's a 5-drop that ticks up to make zombies. 1 zombie per turn. That's not very good. But it's a good floor on the card, and if it is a grindy matchup, then you've got all kinds of great use cases for her. So she comes in grindy matches. Actually, has replaced Nissa Vital Force, who, we're going to have a couple slots now. Maybe Nissa can come back. But for now, I think Liliana's Death's Majesty has proved herself to be very nice. 2 copies of Cage, kind of the most powerful hate card in some ways we have access to. I'm happy to play 2. Still on the 1 of Needle. I'm not convinced that Needle is philosophically a good mid-range card, but there are so many good Needle targets in the format, and our interaction is a little bit worse than it is in older format, so I'm still happy to play 1. I have been testing a Golgari Charm, and this card is, I think, going to stay in my side. I'm seeing a ton of enchantments, more enchantments in general seeing play than I thought there would. So hitting an enchantment is sweet. The regen mode can be nice to catch an opponent out, although you don't usually bring it in for that purpose. And the -1/-1 is very good against the weenie decks, because especially we don't play any X1s in our entire deck. So Golgari Charm, a nice fit. And then the 2 of Veil of Summer. The card's been beasting for me like it has for everybody else, but out it goes because it has been banned. So that's the list I've been playing. Let's make a couple changes to it right now. Alright, so these 3 cards are on the chopping block. Summer, for obvious reasons, but why Bile-Blight? Well, the card has performed admirably for me, but I think having the -X/-X effect in the deck is very important, but it has come up that I cannot beat a Hazaret if the game is otherwise close and if I don't draw my Liliana's Triumph. So for that reason, and for the reason of being able to hit Gideon and also just generically kill X4s, even if other kill spells would do the job, this can also do the job. I think it's going to displace Bile-Blight. I think the ability to deal with those real problem permanents is more important than the ability to get an X for 1. Bile-Blight, definitely a little bit nice, though, against Field of the Dead. It was nice to be able to bring it in that matchup. So if Field of the Dead, if big mana takes over, we might have to explore, Virulent Plague as a sideboard option, something like this. But we've got creature tokens too, so that's not ideal. But in any case, we've got 2 more slots here. The next one I would like to bring back is Legion's End. So adding a Legion's End here is going to replace the X for 1 potential that we've lost by losing Veil of Summer, and it is definitely just some nice incidental graveyard hate. You can get lucky and get a card or 2 out of their hand sometimes as well, and it is just nice low curve interaction. So with 1 Veil of Summer gone, we've got Legion's End. I think the black aggro decks will actually pick up some steam, maybe at the expense of some of the green Devotion decks or the green aggro decks with Veil of Summer gone. And Legion's End is pretty good against stuff like Knight of the Ebon Legion, Gutter Bones, and Multiples, things like this. You don't mind casting a Legion's End on stuff like that. The second Veil of Summer will go, and of course Veil of Summer is also good in mid-range mirrors and against control decks, so we do want to make sure we are adequately prepared for those, even though our main deck is pretty good. And to that end, we're going to bring back the Nissel Vital Force that I've been playing without for a while. I like that we played without her. I think it shows that the deck can grind without her, and it has showed us that Liliana Death's Majesty is pretty sweet as well. But look, we're a 25 land deck. We can afford to have a couple big 5-drop Planeswalker bombs in the sideboard. So that's kind of where my head's at right now. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Of course, as always, my friends, you can let me know what you think. But we're bringing in Grasp of Darkness. We're bringing in Legion's End. Other things that we could consider, again, Virulent Plague or some other way to deal with Field of the Dead tokens, but maybe we should just be trying to beat them with a Clock plus Trophy and Field of Ruin on their Fields of the Dead, and that's just going to be a bad matchup anyway, I'm afraid. It is big mana after all. Other things I'm considering are playing these cards. So we could always get back on the discard game. We've got Despise, if I could spell it. Missing my first S. There we go. So Despise is definitely an option for our sideboard. Not so high on main decking it as I once was, but we do have Despise at our disposal. We do have Duress, remember, at our disposal. There's an argument for either one. I think Despise is more main deckable, but it's potentially true that if one is on our side, it should be Duress. Not entirely sure, and maybe we just want neither. And then Infernal Reckoning is another card that I wouldn't mind bringing back. I have been seeing a good amount of the artifact aggro decks, especially if they're suiting up like an indestructible something or other within Soul Artifact. The Exile is a really nice 2-for-1, 3-for-1 really. Definitely could see playing this card. In fact, let's add that to the sideboard right now to make it 16. I think I might be a little higher on that than I am on another discard, but I'm open to all 3 of those changes. We could play like a second Noxious Grasp too. Obviously, there's lots of different things we could do, but you let me know what you think, my friends. As always, I'll take the channel comment section into account before I play more with this list for you. So thank you so much for watching. I hope the updated deck tech was useful. I have had a ton of people DM, somebody just asked on Facebook, somebody asked on Discord. I've been telling people I've been doing this, I've been doing that, but because my own list has been in flux, I was like, I don't want to make a deck tech. I don't really want to even write up a list, like a formal list, because I'm not entirely sure yet, and a few things still needed to be changed, perhaps. But then the ban announcement came, and I said, okay, let's make a video on the ban announcement. Let's change the list to reflect the ban and see what people think about it. So there you go. Let me know what you think about it, and thank you, as always, to the Patreon supporters who do make this content possible. Link to that is in the description below, and thank you so much for watching. Let me know what's been working for you. I look forward to talking to you in the comments section, and we'll play a list rather like this through a league for you very soon. Hope everybody out there has a wonderful day.